My name is Dean Logan. I'm the Registrar-Recorder County Clerk for Los Angeles County. I'm here today both in my capacity as the Chief Elections Administrator for Los Angeles County and on behalf of the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be part of today's conversation on election costs and procedures related to the June 7th presidential primary election. I also want to thank Secretary of State Padilla for raising this issue and for his commitment to working in collaboration with county election officials to ensure the quality of election administration in California. And in that regard, I want to thank Senator Allen for his focus on funding of elections, the impact that has on the integrity of elections, and the potential that it has to encourage greater voter participation. As has been referenced, adequate and stable funding for elections was the subject of another informational hearing held in the Senate just last month and was referenced repeatedly in a February 2015 joint oversight hearing convened by Senator Allen. So these are issues that we've been dealing with for quite some time. In preparation for the current election season, county election officials have watched closely as the chances of California playing a significant role in the presidential primary nomination process changed from unlikely in January to certain in March, and even more certain in the last several weeks. As such, counties are working within their current budgets to successfully administer elections and to ensure that voters are well informed of the unique procedures associated with the presidential primary, and I'll talk about those in a little bit because they are unique from other elections, and to prepare for higher than normal voter turnout based on what we've seen in states that have preceded us in the primary season. There are a number of factors associated with this election cycle that contribute to the need for additional resources. This is the first presidential election cycle where the shift of state measures from the primary to the general election has occurred, and that impact will be significant given the volume of petitions, which we've already heard talked about today. That volume alone is unprecedented, but the impact of checking the petitions in parallel to administering the presidential primary will put a strain on county resources that simply was not anticipated when the laws changing the date for state measures were passed and when counties adopted their 2015-2016 budgets. It's important to understand from a local perspective that the petition checking process and the administration of the primary election intersect, and they cannot really be viewed as exclusive of one another. They are not budgeted as separate line items. The same personnel, same management, same facilities, and same systems are required for both. Both are subject to rigid deadlines, scrutiny, and detail. Both are impacted by the surge in voter registration, with petition signature gathering generating large numbers of late voter registration activity, and the political party rules for the presidential primary impacting changes in registration and vote-by-mail processing due to the semi-open, semi-closed primary that we operate here in California. And pardon me for getting down a little bit in the weeds, but I think it's important for you to understand that layered on those conditions are additional unexpected impacts of 34 qualified candidates for U.S. Senate that will appear on the primary ballot, which is challenging the limitations of the ballot layout options on our aging voting systems in the state. So there's costs associated with that, which will include voter outreach and education just to encourage voters to be sure that they're looking at the entire ballot before they make their choice and trying to minimize the possibility of overvotes in that U.S. Senate contest. There's the ongoing transition to the new state registration database that the Secretary mentioned, VoteCal, which in and of itself carries a heavy workload related to addressing data quality and system needs while we're in the midst of that transition from a local database to a statewide database. There are a number of new election procedures that are being introduced for the first time in California, including the 8-day post-election signature cure process for vote-by-mail ballots, the postmark +3 deadline for vote-by-mail return, and an extended transit time for standard mail delivery from 6 days to 9 days by the U.S. Postal Service, which will delay the processing of vote-by-mail ballots. Now, all of those activities are required under existing law, and counties are ramping up for those and have done so in short order. We're preparing for their impacts, but all indications are that they will be on an order of magnitude that has no historical parallel. And the impact and strain on resources are magnified by the simultaneous unprecedented volume of petition checking. California election administrators are dedicated and committed to elections integrity, and we have demonstrated that commitment under extremely difficult conditions in the past. You can count on that to continue. However, given what we know today about the election, the petition volume, and what we've seen in the surge of activity in states that have preceded us in the primary season, we know our systems and resources are going to be taxed. Together, we have the opportunity to take proactive steps to increase our readiness and ensure that voters are well served on June 7th. And I would say that the lesson to be learned in looking at the primaries that have preceded California's is that the The expectations of the electorate will be high. The tolerance of the electorate will be low in this election. And I think that we're in a position to benefit from seeing that and knowing that and to prepare for that in advance. While not an ultimate solution to the historical underfunding of election administration in California, action in support of this request with the necessary checks and balances will help address the extreme conditions under which the primary is being conducted. And to a couple of the points that have been raised already this morning, I want to touch on where the funding request is coming from. I think the biggest impact that we're going to experience with this is that simultaneous parallel timing of processing voter registrations, vote-by-mail ballots, and the petition signatures all at the same time. The staff that we use to do that are the same staff. So where we're really going to see the pinch is the need to hire additional temporary staff, overtime costs. Counties have ramped up, and they have gone to their Board of Supervisors to get additional funding for ballots, for poll workers, for polling places. We've been diligent on that, and we have anticipated the surge. I think we could not anticipate the significant impact that these petitions have on top of that. So that's why I think the focus has been on overtime and temporary. That's not to say that we aren't already spending. So, I mean, just to give you an example, again, using the U.S. Senate race as an example, not to get back on the debate about color in the voters pamphlet, but for our ballot layout in L.A. County, in order to draw attention to the fact that that race will be on 2 pages on the ballot, we are using red ink in our sample ballot in our vote-by-mail guides for the first time to the tune of about $500,000, which was an unanticipated expense, and the county will pick that up. So this is not an attempt to get funding that should have already been provided at the county level. The counties have stepped up to that and will continue to step up to it, but it's an opportunity for us to be proactive and to make sure that we are making decisions based on the environment that we're operating in, instead of on an emergency basis and kind of that firefighting mentality where individual counties are making decisions about where to push and pull. Do we give on the preparation of the primary? Do we give on the checking of the signatures? And I think that those are important things to consider in terms of service to the voters. And with that, I'll stop and anticipate lots of questions.
Supervisor?
Thank you. Good morning, honorable chairs and members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today on this very important issue. My name is Erin Hannigan. I'm here on behalf of CSAC, the California State Association of Counties, representing California's 58 counties. I serve as Solano County Supervisor to District 1, and for CSAC as the Vice Chair of the Government, Finance, and Administration Committee, which has jurisdiction over elections policy. On behalf of CSAC, we wish to express our strong support for the Secretary of State's funding request to assist counties with elections administration for the upcoming June primary and November general election. We have heard the current situation facing elections officials be described as a confluence of factors or perhaps the perfect storm that is gathering. The news of increased voter interest and participation is a welcome change from trends we have seen in recent elections, but it has created unexpected demands for the June primaries and in turn demands on November preparations. CSAC has every confidence that counties will continue to faithfully and expertly administer elections on behalf of the state to the best of their ability. However, a one-time investment now will help ensure successful outcomes for all who are involved, election officials and voters alike. Let me express my appreciation for the collaboration with Secretary Padilla and our county officials to identify and address the impending problem and determine the potential cost impacts given the diversity of California's counties and the numerous variables in play. Additional voter registration that could result in even greater turnout, ballot initiatives achieving or failing to meet signature thresholds, and as a result, the length and quantity of printed ballots required. As an example, to the additional costs counties face, each ballot printed for voters is an additional 50 cents. Solano County will print 25% more ballots than normal to account for the high turnout primary election and to accommodate an unknown number of crossover voters. This will result in a $30,000 cost to our general fund. Additionally, from our historical data, we know that it costs $6.50 for each petition signature that we have to review. If Solano County needed to perform 100% signature verification on the 13 initiatives we expect to receive, our cost for this process would likely exceed $450,000. The portion of the Secretary's request for funds to assist counties in the June and November elections is only $1 per registered voter. Based on Solano County's registrations, this might yield about $200,000. While this does not offset the entire impact to our general fund of the additional costs of these elections, it does help to mitigate their impacts on other county programs. In addition to the cost of signature verification, if a significant number of these initiatives makes it to the November ballot, the county may need to employ a two-card ballot, and this would increase our cost by $250,000 in ballot printing alone, while also increasing costs in many other of our election processes. As we narrow down on the targeted number, we look forward to assisting the legislature, administration, and Secretary of State's office to ensure that any additional funding is used responsibly, efficiently, and with accountability for all parties. While we are focused here in the immediate need, I would be remiss if I did not mention the other cost pressures counties are facing when it comes to elections that will require longer-term solutions. It is due to three issues that have come to these committees before, and some that are championed by many of you and Secretary Padilla as well. First, county voting systems are aging rapidly. The state is looking at ways to bring California's elections into the 21st century. That will require updating technology and the equipment that can take us there, but it will not be a patch job, because this will be the basis for the next decade of elections in our state. Second, counties are no longer reimbursed for running special elections to fill legislative or congressional vacancies, which will be triggered like a dominoes following the November election as current office holders win new seats. These single contest elections can cost a county millions to run with no good way to set aside resources accordingly for the what-if scenario should primaries fail to produce a winner and a general special election must also be held. In Solano County's case, based on our historical data, we know that a single contest election costs $4 per registered voter. This means a single contest countywide election would exceed $800,000, significantly impacting our general fund programs. Finally, there is an $87 million backlog owed to counties for state mandate repayment for elections-related services. These mandates are proposed for suspension again this year, and despite their integral role in voting systems, and we have no indication for repayment at this time. All this is happening when the cost to administer elections is growing. Despite the lower voter turnout, it's grown by as much as 270% over the last 20 years. And the voter turnout has grown only by 18% during that same time period, partially attributed to duplications in systems for polling place voting and vote-by-mail elections with greater redundancies and required tasks. This can take a toll on other county services and programs when additional discretionary revenue must be dedicated to elections administration. CSAC is currently supporting current legislative efforts that will help improve efficiencies and reduce costs without limiting voter access and participation, and efforts like additional vote-by-mail opportunities and streamlined special elections. But again, these are longer-term proposals that will not provide assurances for the 2016 election cycle or help make counties whole for the past debt that's owed. Looking at the short term and the needs facing counties in April of this year, the state is in a position to make a big difference in what California voters see at the polls in June and November. We truly believe this is an investment in California, a reasonable and a timely one. The news stories of other western states, which we've all heard, and their primaries is disconcerting to say the least, and we hope California voters will go to the polls with confidence, knowing that their voices will be heard and choices will be counted. In closing, let me express our strong support for the requested funding under consideration today, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. You all are obviously on the ground doing the hard work, and we appreciate that.